Good day, everyone. This is Shane Hagedorn, and you're listening to the Moment to Moment podcast. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Some really cool advancements this week. We are now on iTunes, so all you Apple users out there, you now can subscribe to the Moment to Moment podcast on iTunes. Soon, you Android lovers will be able to subscribe via Spotify. So that is forthcoming. I've had a pretty long week working at the hospital. There was a lot of little incidents that required some really good critical decision making on behalf of the team and I, these really young security professionals that I work with. I say young, they're right around 20 years my minor, kind of when I first started. A lot of great guys, great attitudes, smart, strong, and funny, and we have a really good time. I don't feel my age. As I said, I'm 20 years older than most of the guys on my shift. You know, day shifts used to be the old guards. You'd have, guys in their 40s, 50s, and on the eve of retirement. Yes, I've had officers that have retired right out of that security department, So you guys got gentlemen 40 plus years doing this type of work. And it can be challenging, especially people in their late 50s, early 60s, having to roll around with people and dealing with, intoxicated mental health people that are not seeing things clearly and are not cooperating. So now to have a younger staff on the day shift, it's a really cool vibe. We have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, jokes all around. And I think that helps deal with some of the stresses and, like I said, challenges that people in security and law enforcement face. People in this area work have a dark sense of humor. And I think that having that outlook helps. Like I said, we come into some really tragic events in people's lives, deaths, shootings, stabbings, and not only just the incident of a shooting, but the aftermath, the family, the patient dealing with, like if they live, having some of their mobility taken from them for the rest of their lives, a permanent disablement, and dealing with those things. They are still people, even though regardless of their activity in this event, criminal or otherwise, they are now left with some really tough burdens to bear for the rest of their lives as a result of the consequences. And that can be challenging. So, we're constantly being involved with people's lives through some of these tragedies that happen to them. Our team is very smart, strong, and go-getters. So bravo to my troops. What else this week? I mentioned last week that me and my wife drove to Chicago to get some headshots. Those are now being edited. I had to pick through probably 400 different pictures. I had this wonderful photographer that I'm really happy that I got the chance to meet. She's based out of Chicago. Took some really cool photos, I think. My wife seems to think. And I picked through the top 10 of 400, the top 10%. One for my theatrical, one for my commercial. Now, for those that don't know, an actor has to have at least those two, so your agent can submit you for theatrical work, whether it be movies, TV, or theater. And usually they're a little bit more stoic. And you want your theatrical headshot to represent the brand that you want to emulate. Like mine, for instance. I'm a bit bigger guy. I can look a little intimidating, but I also have a humorous side. So how do you put all that into one image that communicates some of those nuances through, like I said, a couple hundred of those? I think we found the one that kind of really embodies all that. And I'd get the blue collar guy, maybe the cop, maybe the tough guy, maybe the dad. I'm getting older. And now your commercial, For Michigan and Midwestern markets, they want a smile. They want a guy that is fun, that will help sell whatever the commercial's for, whether they're selling a service, a healthcare, a motor part. They want to see that glow, that energy, that fun, but still grounded. So I think we had some pretty good choices through that, and I should be getting her edited versions sometime next week. So kind of really cool to see how those turn out, because you can take a great picture and really capture the essence that we just talked about, but there still has to be some editing, not heavy Photoshop stuff, but little details, little blemishes taking out, just little things to make a picture pop. I'm excited to see what she does with that. We're getting closer to the end of this month, and what comes next month is my anniversary with my wife, Stacy. We're going to be celebrating 17 years. And wow, just saying that, just all the time that has flown by in 17 years. We've grown together. I felt like we were still kids. I was 26 when we first got married. I'll tell you, in those days, when I just started security at this hospital, I just started acting that year as well. And it was the spring going into the summer. And I thought, this summer is going to be the summer of Shane. I'm going to have so much fun. I'm walking around. I'm in a hospital. There's a lot of very nice and young nurses that I work with that sees this young and kind of cocky security officer with a duty belt and a bulletproof vest, squared away, and now taking acting classes. I said, yeah, me and the guy's going to hang out. We're going to talk to girls. And there was one of these girls that I noticed at the hospital, and I just was taken back just how pretty she was. And I just wrote her off. I figured, yeah, she's got a doctor for a boyfriend if she's not already married. And we used to have to go to all the traumas together. So once a trauma comes in the hospital, there's multiple departments that go there to see if they're needed. You'll have, of course, nurses, doctors, sometimes surgery folks go there, X-ray, CAT scan or CT, and security. I'd met her on one of those trauma calls, and I looked at her, and like I said, I just figured she had a boyfriend or whatever. And she's one of those girls that we'd all talk about, like, yeah, it was that strawberry-haired blonde girl. I didn't know her name. And one day we was driving around with me and one of my partners, and I seen her taking a break out at the ER bay. It was a beautiful day. Hey, stop here. I'm going to pull in. I didn't have no plan. I just go, I'm going to go talk to her. And we had this conversation. It was kind of light, but I kept it a little mysterious. Later, I'm sitting in dispatch because I was just on a break, and a common friend of ours came in, a girlfriend of hers. And they tried playing this little game that I was kind of on to, whereas she'd say, so Shane, what are you doing after work? And I said, nothing. So where would be a good place that a few folks could go to have a couple drinks and talk and not be too busy? And I mentioned one cool place, some darts. It's not a club where you're shouting over all the grinding that people are doing on the dance floor and the music. Actually could have somewhat of a conversation. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, you want to go afterwards? And I knew it right then. I go, okay, she's interested. At least she stayed quiet the whole time. It was just like watching the monitors. She has a different version of this story, but that's my version. So I knew that she was at least interested. And I'm like, I need a wingman. I need somebody that I can kind of roll off of, and nobody would go with me. I go, okay, I'll be my own wingman. I'll go out with these two girls, meet up with their friends. I can handle it. And that night, as we start talking and having fun playing darts, I did one of those moves where I kind of got behind her and kind of showed her how to throw a dart, or you get behind, you kind of show them how to use the tennis racket. Kind of lame, I know. But it gave me a chance to get close to her. And there was just an instant chemistry. When when two people are meant to be together, you just know it. You feel it. I can't explain it. I mean, I know it was meant to be because 17 years later, here we are. And I told my friend, me and her hung out that whole weekend. We went out, we ate, we talked long into the night. And I told my friend after that weekend, it'd been 3 days, and this was going to be the summer of Shane, right? 3 days, I said, this is the last woman I'll ever be with. He didn't believe me. 17 years later. And I say that because things happen in a way where you don't expect them to. If you're out there looking for things, if you're chasing things, pursuing them, sometimes you might get them, but often you don't. Things that if you hunt them down, they have a way of getting away from you. But when you are, in my opinion, going in with just confidence, going about your business, and preparing yourself for opportunities, when the opportunity happens, you're ready for it. Now, personally, at that time, I think that I kind of knew what I wanted in a woman. And maybe that summer of Shane, I was looking for that. Maybe I knew what I wanted my ideal woman, maybe subconsciously. But I told her, I don't know if it was that weekend or, of course, later, I said, you're the person that I prayed for. When I was a kid, when I was a teen, you're the woman that I always wanted. And she told me the same thing. We're good friends. Her family's good. No problems. I couldn't believe it the first weekend. I kept saying, there's something wrong here. You got a boyfriend, or there's somebody in your family that just isn't right, and I'm going to discover it. And I kept not wanting to give into that moment because I felt that it wasn't real, that the rug was going to be just taken away from me at any moment. And it wasn't. And now, 17 years later, all the things that we've built together, our relationships, our friendships, I just couldn't see doing this with anybody else. And it's interesting, when you're in the arts, you're going to be surrounded by people that are really charismatic, that are attractive, that have qualities that you'd be attracted to. And I mean that even just in a person-to-person thing, there's qualities that attract you. And I am so happy that I have a firm foundation with my wife. I can go into those elements. I can go into projects. And if I have to play a father, or if I have to play a love interest, that I'm not swayed by those feelings and those moments, because I know where my anchor is. I know where home is. And I do not want to jeopardize that. I don't want to start over. I don't want to build another fire to find out another person's quirks or personalities. We have something very special, and I treasure that. I hold on to it, and I nurture it. It is something that has to be constantly cared for and not taken for granted. And I've experienced this too, and other people, that you do take that for granted. It'll always be there. So you don't invest in it as much. You don't take the relationship and keep it fresh. You don't constantly try to come up with ways to surprise them. And it can get a little stale. And sometimes people can just walk through the motions of staying together. You both go to work, you both come home, you both got to eat, you both got to shower, you both got laundry to do, dishes, and 15 years pass. I was talking with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about relationships. And I think back in the day, two people would meet. Maybe they didn't meet. Maybe they were just having to be together because of two families wanting to form an alliance. Or out of need, there's only 300 people in the small town, and maybe there's 40 girls of the same age as you. And people then wanted to hurry up, start a family, and get going. There was no real dating, there's, taking a year or two to get to know each other and live together. It was, I want to start this. The guy's eager, if you get my drift. The girl wants to get going. I mean, people's life expectancy wasn't that much, so you had to get these things going. And people maybe not have fell in love immediately. Women weren't taking care of themselves or the image maybe as they are now. So people were, let's say, more common looking. I think people fell in love as a result of the relationship and caring for one another. The man would go out in those days. The man would go out, bring the food home, bring the meat home, bring the money home. And the woman took care of the house and took care of the children, took care of the business of the home, which is a big job. And they learned to appreciate each other for the teamwork and the roles that they were given at those times. And they fell in love with that stewardship, that giving, that mutual respect. Two people on a journey with the similar goals of raising and rearing kids and establishing a little piece of heaven on earth together. And then the love fell. I don't know, am I wrong? Maybe. But if I'm not, and a certain percentage of people actually kind of went through that, we look at today and people just fall in and out of relationships. I see many people married over, still trying to find their loved one or in and out of relationships. And I'm not special. I may be a unique case that this day and age that, I went 5, 10, 15, now 17 years. But I think there is a foundation to what I just illustrated that is a thread line through those relationships that have lasted. A mutual respect, a friendship, two people, partners with common goals, together working through hardships, celebrating highs, and shouldering the lows together. Now I think it's more cosmetic relationships. It's what you look like. It's kind of plastic. The first signs of anything awkward or the weight becomes a little too heavy, we just run because there's something else out there. We can find somebody on Tinder. We can find somebody. There's so many people now that are connected. I could go through social media and just find another replacement. Back then, you didn't have that. There was towns that were miles apart, days of travel, and you had to make it work. I don't know. Some people were trapped in those relationships, and maybe they just felt there was no way out. There's truth to that, definitely. I don't know. What do you think? Are we more cosmetic now? Are there so many fish in the sea that there's so many choices that we don't have to settle, that we don't have to really look for that soulmate anymore? I don't know. But I believe, as for me and my house, we are together. We're one unit. We both expressed our goals and we're helping each other towards those. And I think that's why there is success in that. There's days when I come home beat and I have somebody to talk to, and vice versa for her. We help each other achieve goals, and how she helps me by taking care of things when I'm not able to tend to them because I have other responsibilities. And then when she gets overloaded with school and with this thing, I come in and step in. There's that partnership. One time Stacy told me, and I still relish the way she worded this. She said, "You're my perfect companion." And I was like, that is spot on. Not you're my perfect lover. You're the perfect man. You're the perfect companion. Wow. As we get older, sex is going to die down. Looks going to scale back. And what do you have after all that? It becomes less physical and more connected as people, companions through life. And that's what we want, is companionship. So go out, look for a companion. Look for somebody that shares the same ideals, goals in life, your outlook on the world, spirituality, family, things like that. And find a friend that you can walk with for the rest of your life. Because as your friends and family come, go, die, pass on, you've got somebody with you, holding your hand, braving the winds, and walking forward until the next life. Thanks again for listening and tuning in. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, you can't live in your past, you can't live in the future, but you can live moment to moment. God bless you all, and have a great weekend.